The price of this commodity has been soaring on the international market. For some, they will argue that it's a renewed good fortune for the Ghanaian economy. But how are we managing things now to ensure that we benefit from the good run of this commodity on the international market? We're talking about the price of cocoa. And as you talk about cocoa and development in the sector, indeed, I would say I'm privileged to engage the Chief Executive of Ghana COCOBOD, Dr. Randsford Abbey, or call him Dr. Randy Abbey. Doc, I appreciate your time so much and thank you for granting us an opportunity in your office. I'll say that, how is Doc doing?
I'm doing well. By the special grace of God, I'm doing very well.
I mean, let's look at the transition from private sector, because you were also CEO of a private firm, and even when it comes to the football club and even the media group and other things as well. But moving to more of a public private sector, how has it been? Because we know we've always heard a lot of things about the public sector and how when you're in the private sector, things were moving very smooth, and the transition to the public space. I mean, how would you describe the experience, Doc?
Well, I think that, first of all, COCOBOD is a very huge organization. I mean, it's an organization that is key as far as the economy of this country is concerned. I consider it the most important as far as Ghana is concerned, because Ghana is actually cocoa and cocoa is Ghana. And it's an organization that also operates in 7 of the regions of Ghana. So we have 7 cocoa growing regions. And it has employees of over 10,000, you know, and it requires a lot of critical decision making because of how crucial its operations are to the economy. And so, yes, I mean, it is not your everyday public sector organization. It also has its unique attributes because of its sheer size and its strategic role in the economy. So it's a place where you find a lot of experts, you find a lot of professionals, and the bureaucracy is also here. And you'd have to deal with all those things. Yeah. And
as one would say that, Doc, how have you managed to manage it? Because again, I will still try to do the public sector and the private sector contrast, and you want things to move fast. You have come, you want the job done, and sometimes certain things have to go through certain procedures, you know, which in the private sector could just get this and it's moving. I mean, how has it been for you?
You know, sometimes the speed with which you get things done, you might not get it here, but you also need to recognize the fact that due process is also extremely important. And so you'd find out that a lot of people actually get into trouble because they did not follow due process. And so coming in here, I was pretty sure that there will be nothing like sidestepping the process, because you also need to then find ways of speeding things up. And so one of the things is to then engage the colleagues here and to let everybody know that, look, this is how we want things done. We need to ensure that the scrutiny is done and everything, but we ought to make sure that the turnaround time is quicker than it used to be. But due process is extremely important, and I do not think that I would circumvent that for speed.
Has it made you so extra cautious that sometimes some will say Doc is too cautious? Why is Doc too cautious? Because of all those past stories that you heard about CEOs and the public sector, that you think that you are so careful, even when you're trying to sign a letter, you want to read from A to Z before you append your signature?
You know, from where I have sat for close to 30 years, I have analyzed and dealt with many stories that has to do with due process, signing the wrong things and all that. So I am guided by those things, and I ensure that at least I see that it's gone through where it must go through. If I think that there is any clarification that is needed, I'll get the requisitely qualified persons to come in and try and explain them. So I try to do things as much as I can, and also to try and make sure that everything is in its right place. So I'm not in a hurry to sign.
Let's look at the plan for this sector. And some will say that the private sector blood is in you, and knowing what is already here, one would want to find out from Doc that What is your plan for this sector that really some would describe as one of the critical backbones of the Ghanaian economy?
Well, I guess our job is cut. I mean, fortunately, I have my board in place, and if you look at the composition of the board, you'd find extremely knowledgeable and experienced people, and people also play strategic roles in other facets of the Ghanaian economy. And so I'm blessed to have a very good board, led by my chairman, Dr. Ofosu Ampofu, who is also an extremely experienced person. He's been a Minister of State, a cabinet minister. He's been a member of Parliament. I mean, he's seen it all. And so, I mean, having such a person leading the board, I mean, is the least that you could ask for. I mean, he's chaired the board of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority before, a very large organization as well. So I'm privileged to have him and all the people on the board. The governor is on the board, the finance minister is on the board. You have members of parliament, some from cocoa growing areas actually on the board. You have the farmers themselves represented on the board as well. The workers are represented. So I think that we have quite a superb blend as far as the board is concerned. So they are there. And I'm also on the board. So they're actually there to help shape the policy and strategic goals of the organization. And then I lead the team to then do the effective and efficient implementation of these things. I mean, our job is cut out for us. Clearly, this is an industry and an organization that is in distress. We all know it's a highly or heavily indebted organization. There are a lot of issues as far as the finances are concerned, issues of decision-making with respect to procurement and all that. And so there's a need to find a strategy on how to deal with the debt. And two, find a strategy on how to bring value, especially to the Ghanaian cocoa farmer. And so that is what we're looking at. And also, most importantly, to put in place the strategies and also implement the things that will not make us go the way that this organization has gone over the last few years. Yes.
So I get that the debt issue, value addition to the cocoa farmer, these are one of your two prime focus.
Key things.
Now, if you talk about debt, I mean, even at the national level, we've seen a debt restructuring program.
Yes.
I know COCOBOD had its own share about that one. Some will say that it might be moving on just beyond that debt situation. What are some of the things that you also may have to take in the broader space of trying to restructure the institution and deal with the debt situation as well?
Well, first of all, a part of the debt was part of the restructuring. As I speak with you, there's a 2 billion cedis cocoa bills due in August, September, that we need to look for the money to pay, you know. And so you have a part of the debts that were structured. And then you also have an issue with respect to the cocoa roads that we all read that COCOBOD had agreed as part of the IMF deal to do a rationalization of the cocoa roads in order to reduce the exposure, which then was about 21 billion to about 6.6 billion. Unfortunately, we took office only to find out that beyond the desktop analysis and putting it in an IMF document, nothing had been done to do this rationalization exercise. Fortunately, with the kind assistance and guidance of my friend and brother, the Honorable Minister for Roads, the Honorable Agboja, we've been able to put together a joint team that has been able to do the rationalization exercise. So the next step is for us to meet, to finalize that, and then now engage the contractors. And we expect that once we're able to do that, that will also reduce the exposure from the 21 billion to about 7 billion. So that is what we are working on in terms of the exposure as far as road contracts are concerned. And then you also have the issue of supplies and all that, supplies of agrochemicals and all that. We also need to deal with those debts. So we are looking at having a structure to retard these debts. These are not debts that we can be able to pay within a year or two. And so we're coming up with a plan. We actually have it, but I think at the first board meeting, the board will have to look at it, how we believe that we're going to structure this. There's a little hiccup with respect to this because our projections, our revenue projections, have taken a hit of about 30 to 35% as a result of the strength of the cedi. You know that we are an exports-driven organization. We do exports, so a stronger cedi also means less revenue for us. So, for example, when we did our forecast, our financial forecasting and the modeling, we used 15.5 because at that time it was about 16, but we used 15.5 to do this. And as we speak, it's about 10.2. So you have a little over 5 cedis shaved off $1. A little over 5 cedis shaved off $1. So if you're looking at perhaps maybe revenue or sales of about $4 billion for the next season, you are talking about a minimum of 20 billion cedis off, your projected revenue. Obviously, this would mean that you need to now take a second look at your projections again. Yes, there also is a flip side to it, and that is that your dollar-based debts that you're expected to pay in cedis would also reduce, but you now need to do the net off with respect to what are the gains you make on the debt side as against the revenue side. And this also has a strong correlation with the producer price, because you know that, for example, for 24-25, the producer price was $3,100, which at that time was 49,000 cedis, because the dollar at that time was 16 cedis when the producer price was announced. So it was $3,100 by 16 cedis, which gave you about 49,000 per ton, and which translates to 3,100 cedis per bag, because 16 bags make a ton, so 3,100 cedis. Now, as we speak, the dollar is selling for 10.2 BOG, 10.2. Now, the 10.2 means that a bag of cocoa should be 1,900 on the basis of the strength of the cedi, because it's moved from 3,100 times 16 to 3,100 times 10.2. And so we should be paying about 1,900 per bag, or paying about 39,000 or so per ton. But COCOBOD is still paying the 3,100 per bag.
Per the old price.
Yes, and the 49,000 cedis. Now, if you translate that to dollars, what it means is that COCOBOD is paying $4,800 per ton instead of $3,100. So by virtue of the strength of the cedi, it has adjusted the price from 3.1 to 4.8.
Doc, you had a private discussion with the president, and he tried to give us some hints about the fact that there will still be something in the offing for farmers due to what has happened in terms of more of a review of the price. Are we going to have that expected in July?
So what I'm saying is that the producer price, as announced in 2024 for the 24-25 season, was $3,100. The exchange rate was 16 cedis. That translated to about 49,000 per ton and 3,100 cedis per bag. So 3-1. So what you also need to know is that because this is a commodity that is sold in dollars, so the FOB, the producer price is a percentage of the FOB, and that is also in dollars. And then you apply the exchange rate to get the cedi value. So we're working with 3,100. But by virtue of the cedi, the strength of the cedi in the last 2 months or so, it has adjusted the producer price to $4,800. Because you see, if we were operating, let's say, the Ivorian model, as we always must apply the producer price, which is in US dollars, to the prevailing exchange rate. So it's $3,100. So you multiply it by the prevailing exchange rate. So if we did that today, it will come to about 39 or 38,000 cedis per ton and about 1,900 cedis per bag.
Yeah.
But what has happened is that we have not done that adjustment. So we are still paying the 3,100 cedis and 49,000 cedis per ton. Now, if you decide to find the dollar value of 49,000 cedis today, you find out that it is $4,800.
Yeah.
So by virtue of what we are paying the farmer today, we have moved the producer price from 3.1 to 4.8 without even announcing a new producer price. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is what has happened. This is the reality.
Yeah.
There are scenarios to it. We will present that to the board. The board at its first meeting is going to put together the producer price committee, which will then look at all these things and then we'll look at it. Government itself is fully aware of the implications of this strengthening CD with respect to the producer price. And so government itself will also have to look at the implications. Because you see, as I sit here, COCOBOD is not being able to benefit from the increasing cocoa prices as a result of a rollover by the previous administration. A rollover of 333,767 tons that were sold for $2,600, but were not supplied.
Interesting.
Yes. So the previous administration signed contracts, and so they sold cocoa. And they couldn't supply. They sold it at 2,600 per ton, and could not supply 333,767 tons. Not 33,000, not 3,000. 333,767 tons. They could not. This was in the 23-24 season. Then 24-25, the prices go up. So that same administration then gave the mandate they gave to CMC to sell was at $6,600 US. So what is happening is that you're using $6,600 cocoa for 24-25 to service a contract that was executed at 2,600. And then you are paying the cocoa farmer 3,100. If you add haulage and the BDC margins, you are looking at an extra, let's say, $1,000. So it's costing you maybe $900. So it's costing you about $4,000 for every ton of cocoa that you buy. And you use that to service cocoa that was sold for $2,600. Now, by virtue of what is happening with the currency, we are now paying the farmer about $4,800. If you add the haulage and the LBC margin, then it's taking you to about, let's say, $5,700 US. But mind you, this 6,600, you are servicing both the rollover, which was sold at 2,600, and then a part which you are selling for 6,600. So you then have to strike an average to get what you are actually earning from the cocoa. So as we speak, on the basis of what is happening with the CD, you are spending about $5,700. So if you factor in the equation of the 2,600 one, then it means that you are dealing with a deficit of about more than that. Yeah, more than that. About so 5.7 against 2.6. You know, so it means that you then have a gap of about 3,100.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of situation that we find ourselves in at the moment.
I mean, first, let's start with the contract issue. I mean, is there not any clause in that gives you the hand to review? Because look at the price of cocoa right now, and you are looking at the price of 2,700.
2,600.
600. Can't anything be done to this forward contracting that was signed with the suppliers?
Well, obviously, if there was something, we could have done it. But the truth of the matter is that it's even taking a lot to get them to still buy some at the new price whilst you are servicing the old one. So as we speak, we've serviced 230,000 tons of the 333,000, whilst we've also sold about 300,000 tons at the new price. I hope you understand the point I'm making.
I get you.
Yes. So that is what puts us in a very terrible position. And we will have no choice than to then carry on forward about 100 and maybe 100,000 or so, a little over 100,000 of this rollover 2,600 contracts into 25-26, because we will not be able to service all in 24-25.
I get the state of helplessness, but being in this business for quite a long time, I'm just asking that for your technical advices, can there be anything to get out of this challenge? Because
the only way
your hands are tied this season and next season.
The only way is to service the contracts, because when you engage the dealers, and I've done that several times, when you engage them, they also refer to the losses they made when you fail to deliver. Because you signed the contract to deliver the thing within a period, and you fail to deliver. And they will also tell you about the losses that they also made. So when I met them in London and in New York, they all made those points and showed me how much losses they also incurred as a result of our inability to supply those contracts. But in the first place, the question we need to ask is, how come? How did that situation arise? How is it that you make a forecast and the forecast goes off by over 40%? For an institution that will be 80 years in 2027 and has done, has syndicated loans for about 32 years, how is it that you do a forecast that goes off the mark by about 40%? There would have been something. And as a result of that, this is what has happened to this country, so that the farmer is unable to get real value. So at the time when the prices are high, the farmer cannot benefit from it. The country itself cannot benefit from it. COCOBOD itself cannot benefit from it. Because assuming that even with all this humongous debt, if the rollover were not there and we're getting the benefits of these high prices, it could have helped us in retiring a significant portion of this debt. But now you are saddled with this debt, and as a result of the rollover, you're also unable to benefit from the high prices.
I mean, looking at the way the production is going, can you even make this target next season?
Yes, like I said, this season we have been able to service 230,000.
Okay, so you're still left with just
so about 100,000, which will roll over to 25-26.
That can even be achievable this season?
No, it's not. The season is just about over, so it's not. I mean, as I speak with you, we've done about 590, you know, and so what we are looking at is the possibility of maybe reaching 600 or a little under 600,000.
For this particular season?
Yes, the previous season was 438.
And what was your target for this season, actually?
Well, it was 610.
So you would achieve your target for this?
No, you know, from where I sit, I get the data every week. From where I sit, like I said, we're getting close to 590. And this is where we're doing the light crop. So you are not really expecting a lot. And there are people who are also hoarding in anticipation of the new season and new price. You know, so I do not expect that we would cross the 600 mark.
But Dr. Musi said that with all the challenges, and even if I stick to the production levels, 600, 5 something, I stand to be educated as somebody who doesn't appreciate the industry. That is still not bad, even though you miss your target.
Well, compared to, I mean, it's an improvement. And we can only hope that 25, 26, we can do a bit more. You know, I think that what we are looking at is that maybe in the next 2 years, because there's something happening. The prices, if you speak with all the experts and others, they think that the kind of prices that we're having are not sustainable. But we expect that maybe we would have that level of pricing for maybe another 2 years.
So, I mean, Doc, do I get from you, Doc, that because of what is happening and what you explained, we won't get an increment in the producer price?
No, that's what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that...
Or the difficulty making the
All
review.
I'm telling you is that, first of all, the producer price is in US dollars. And because we pay in cedis, you have the conversion per the exchange rate, and you pay it in cedis. So I'll give you an example. $3,100 by 16. That was when we fixed the producer price. So by 16 cedis to a dollar, that is what gave us the 49,000 for the ton and 3,100 for the bag. As we speak, the 49,000 is no longer $3,100. It's $4,800. The 3,100 cedis is no longer what it was in dollars.
is now a higher figure. So what it means is that the percentage of FOB that you are paying the farmer is gone up astronomically. That's the point I'm making to you. That if you now add the LBC and haulage to it, you're talking about a figure which is in about $5,700. Do you get the point I'm making?
Get you.
So assuming that we didn't even have a rollover and you were dealing with the 6,600, what percentage of FOB will the 5,700 be of 6,600? You'll be getting close to about 80% or so of the FOB, or even more. Now you have a situation where in this particular season, you are dealing with both 6.6 and 2.6. So you strike an average to find what your average price for this season is. If you strike that average, 262, because as we speak, we've done, let's say 330,000 at 6.6, and then we've done 230,000 at 2.6. Strike the average. You would realize that your average price is not even up to $5,000. So if your average price is not up to $5,000, and you're having to spend about $5,700, you can check the implication. Yesterday when I checked, we are doing about 99.2% or so of FOB on the basis of what is currently being paid. So virtually 100% is going out.
So indirectly, per the currency dynamics, the farmers have already been compensated.
That's what it means. Because
so there will not be a need
I'm
for
saying
a
that
new
we sell,
price.
you see, the reality, all I'm saying, it is not we will get or will not get.
Okay.
I'm just saying that let's deal with the facts.
Yeah.
The fact is that you sell in US dollars. Cocoa is sold in US dollars. Now, when you sell the cocoa on the price, the average price that you give the farmer a percentage of that FOB, which normally ranges between 60 and 70%. Normally, it's between 60 and 70%. Now, the situation that you have today is that by virtue of the strength of the CDC, because what we should have then done was that once the CD is up, once it's 3,100, all we need to do is that we need to do 3,100 by 10.2 and pay that. But we are not doing the 3.1 by 10.2. We are still doing the 3.1 by 16. So if you do the reverse, what you have to do is 3.1 divided by 10.2 to give you the dollar value, or the 49,000 divided by 10.2, and that is what will give you the $4,800, which tells you that by maintaining the 49,000 and 3,100 per bag, the producer price has moved from $3,100 to $4,800 a ton. And on the basis of the rollover, the effect of the rollover on the current prices, you are doing virtually 100% of the FOB.
You think that the critical stakeholders out there will appreciate some of this basic facts that you're putting out about the current situation on the ground?
But that's it. There's nothing far from it. That's it. I mean, unless you want to tell me that you don't appreciate it.
I do.
Yes.
But I do very much. But I'm asking about those who matter. And
yeah, but you are those who provide the news in a way that everybody must appreciate. And that is exactly the reason why we are having this interview. And these are the facts. You fix the producer price at the time that the Bank of Ghana was 16. So it was 16 times 3.1, which gave you 49,000 for a ton and 3,100 for a bag. Today, the CD is so strong that it's at 10.2. So if you are maintaining the 3,100, what should be the price per bag and the price per ton? So by maintaining the same 49,000, the implication is that you are now paying $4,800 to the farmer. So if you even take the cocoa, today's cocoa that you are using to service the $2,600, it means that you are giving the farmer $4,800. Then you give the haulers and the LBCs another about $900, making it $5,700. And you are using the $5,700 to service a $2,600 contract. Mind you, in doing all of these things, you have not referred to all the extension services, the agrochemicals, the seedlings, all the things that COCOBOD does to make sure that the cocoa comes out, the quality control, the grading and sealing, the CMC that markets the cocoa and their margins. All these have not been factored. I'm just dealing with the cocoa farmer, the haulers, and the LBCs. So this is the situation. This is the reality. And we would have to deal with it. Because the other way of looking at it is that by maintaining what you are paying, you have moved the producer price from 3.1 to 4.8. That's what it means.
This is PM Express Business Edition, engaging the Chief Executive of COCOBOD, Dr. Anertey Abbey, getting developments in the sector, the state of the cocoa industry, and the Ghanaian economy. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition, engaging the Chief Executive of COCOBOD as we look at the cocoa sector and the Ghanaian economy and what is being done to put the sector firmly stable in terms of what the board is doing to deal with all the challenges in this space. Doc, so help me out and educate me. I've got a lot of education and I should confess. What would be your recommendation to the board?
I'm not expected to tell you what I will recommend to the board before I recommend to them. That will not be right. But one thing that you must know is that, for example, if the board, through its producer price committee, were to even recommend a $1,000 increase in the producer price, $1,000, which would be about a 30% increase, it would have taken the producer price, it would take the producer price to $4,100. The $4,100 by the current exchange rate will be about 41,000 cedis. So even if we were to increase the producer price by $1,000 from 3.1 to 4,100, Cote d'Ivoire currently is at 3.6. When we were at 3.1, Cote d'Ivoire was at 2.9, and their recent increase moved them to $3,600. A ton, whilst we stayed at 3.1 because we were anticipating an increase in August because we want to open the season earlier in August. So I'm suggesting to you that even if we had increased, Cote d'Ivoire is now 3.6. If we had increased to even $4,100, even 4,000 to make the calculation easier, if we had moved to 4,000, which will be $400 more than Cote d'Ivoire, that $4,000 per today's exchange rate will be 40,200. 40,200 cedis, which in cedi terms will still be far less than the producer price we're paying because the cedi is now 10.2 instead of 16 cedis. So although we would have increased the price by $1,000, in cedi terms, it will be far less than what the farmers are getting today. So this is the reality that we must all confront. This is the reality. That to the extent that the cedi gets stronger and stronger, what we must begin to understand is that it is now a dollar value multiplied by an exchange rate to give you what you earn. So when you are an exporter in cedi terms, you would see a significant drop. However, how you may want to look at it is if there is a corresponding drop in cost of living and in prices generally, they might begin to also look at it from this point of view. That, oh, maybe if I'm getting 40,000 today, the 40,000 can do more than what the 49,000 did. So like we do normally, they use cement. So maybe based on current prices of cement or what cement prices will be in the next month or two? Is it that your 40,000 can now buy you maybe 10 bags of cement when the 49,000 could buy you 7 bags of cement? So that when you express it, that you are then suggesting that although on the face of it, your money is lesser, the value of what the money can do for you is more. Because the truth is that it is always the dollar times an exchange rate to give you what you earn. So if I sit here, like I was analyzing to you earlier, if we expect to do $4 billion of sales next season, 25-26, and we're looking at doing 15, it's 4 billion by 15. That is what will give you a projected revenue.
Yeah.
Now, if the cedi has dropped to 10, it is 4 billion by 10. That is what will give us our projected revenue. So if you're fixing a producer price, it is also, so let's say a percentage of FOB. So assuming that you were going to sell the cocoa at 7,000 and you want to give the farmer 70% of 7,000. So 70% of 7,000 will probably be about $4,900. That's 70%, which will be perhaps the highest ever. 70%. So 70% of 7,000 will give you 4,900. That 4,900 divided by 10 is 49. The same 49,000 cedis. So what that tells you is that even though you have increased the producer price from 3.1 to 4.9, an increase of $1,800 in dollar terms is the same. You have not moved anywhere.
As a farmer, maybe then I'll say that my expectation should be measured. I shouldn't expect any increment next season or even the coming months.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying that is what
yes,
I'm saying. That
I am just
make that.
I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that if we were to stick to the 3.1, the price that was announced in 2024 for the 24-25 season is 3,100. If you multiply it by the exchange rate today, a ton should be 31,000.
Yeah.
And a bag should be about 1,009 or 1,007. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
That's what it should be. So, what I'm telling you is that by virtue of the performance of the cedi, even if we were to move the producer price from 3.1 to 4.9, which will be $1,800 increase, in cedi terms, it will still come to the 49,000.
So there's little that can be done.
No, I believe that it will be done in dollar terms.
Yeah, it will be done.
It will be done. But what I am trying to explain is that whatever is done in dollar terms will be expressed in cedi terms by the exchange rate.
How?
So what we must know is that in as far as the cedi is growing stronger, what farmers earn in cedi terms will not be that high. That's a simple thing I've been trying to explain the last 20 minutes.
I mean, Doc, do I get from you that you are, again, one of those who was worried about the strong appreciation of the Ghana cedi because of the impact of it on your operations? And there are some exporters are worried. There are some banks who were very heavy in FS transactions who are also worried about the impact on their bottom line. But picking the national interest first, you know, this is why I am worried about the strong appreciation of the Ghana cedi.
You see, if there is a strong correlation between the appreciation of the cedi and a reduction in the cost of living and reduction in general prices, everybody will appreciate it. Because you see, a stronger currency is always good. From a selfish point of view, I'm just looking at my books and I'm looking at the implications and all that. But somebody will also ask, I mean, if you're even giving the person 60,000 and that 60,000 holds no value, because really the value of the money has to do with that's why people refer to as purchasing power. You see, it is about what the money can do and not really how much the money is. It's what it can do. So if we have a strong correlation or a corresponding reduction in the cost of living and in the cost of items, prices, that is where you can then say that, look, even when it was 60,000, I could maybe buy 10 bags of cement. Now that it is 45,000 or 40,000, I can even buy 15 bags of cement. So although on the face of it is reduced from 60 to 40, the value is better because I'm getting a lot more for this reduced CD than when it was higher.
Holding the producer price constant and whatever that will happen, since you're even yet to engage the board, do you believe that you may have to do a lot of more post-farmer engagement because a lot of people may not appreciate what you've explained? I do. But for these critical stakeholders being the farmers, whatever that happens post the producer price review, the post-engagement with them is critical.
You know, one of the things I was telling my staff was that my brother Atufosin waited for me to finish my tour. And then he and Governor Johnson decided to then drive the thing down. Because if this were the situation, it would have helped me. Because I've gone to all the 7 cocoa regions. I've met the farmers. I've had debates.
You've promised them.
Yes, I've promised them. Good. And the truth is that we're convinced and it's going to happen. That's why I'm telling you that on the dollar side, we sell the thing in dollars.
We'll see an increment.
On the dollar side, we'll definitely see an increment. And a significant one. But the point I'm trying to explain is that even when we do that, which is what we're going to do, based on the strength of the CD, in CD terms, you might not see anything significant. That's what I've explained to you.
I get you.
Yes.
The president is saying that the president told us recently, and gave me on his protest, that you're looking at a true value. The finance minister and the Bank of Ghana governor has told him that between 10 to 12. Does that give you some comfort that in terms of interventions, we won't see an excellent intervention from the Bank of Ghana driving the rate further down?
So I'll tell you something. Although it was a private conversation, I think that the finance minister would not mind me saying. I was having a conversation with him, and I said, where are you driving this thing to? You are making all my projections
out of gear.
Out of gear. You know, I did this thing with 15.5, and I thought I was being conservative. Now I'm seeing the thing around 14 and whatever. He said, oh, it's because of you. I thought about you and decided to leave the thing at 12. Then 2 weeks later or a week later, I realized that the thing had gone down below 12. So I called him again. I said, Atu, but you told me 12. What's happening? He says, oh, I beg you, work with 10. You know? So this is how the thing...
And the 10 gives you some comfort.
It doesn't. You know, I've just told you.
It doesn't. But then the market pushes you into
But then you see, the point is that there is the issue of the general economy. And then there is the issue of COCOBOD. Like I've told you, if we are going to have a corresponding decrease in the cost of living, a corresponding decrease in prices, it won't matter.
Okay.
Do you get the point I make? It won't matter. At that point, the farmer and everybody else in the economy knows that although my $1 is now 8 cedis or 10 cedis, it can do more than what the 16 cedis was doing for me. That is where the appreciation will come. Because you see, the point is that for importers, it's good. For exporters, it is not good. It's bad news. There are people who say that, yes, you are an import-dependent economy. And so this affects a lot of people the more. So as managers of the economy, what we must focus on is how it affects all sides and how to keep a healthy balance. And I'm sure that is what the finance minister, the governor, and all the managers of the economy and the people who sit at cabinet are really focused on.
Doc, the producer price is a fraction of a lot of things that you're doing in terms of the farmer as well. Also going forward, what else is the board doing to improve the livelihood of the farmers? I mean, in terms of other activities that you're doing as well.
So one of the things that is also coming up strongly, you know, because of a free SHS, the COCOBOD scholarship became moot, you know. And so there's some conversations. I think the previous board, they tried to look at doing school infrastructure. Now, we have also assumed office, and there's, but they didn't even start it. Yes, although they voted some money, but they didn't start it. They didn't start anything. There's also this view of shifting to tertiary, the scholarship. And when we met the farmers, that also came up strongly. So these are propositions that the board would have to look at. We might have to bring in some experts to do the analysis, the financial analysis for us to see what we can take on and what we cannot take on. But this is all looking at farmer welfare. The other things would have been maybe their health. When we went around, they were saying that they need a lot more cocoa clinics. They need a lot more improvement in their roads. But of course, I am not here to add up to the debt. And I explained to them that I can easily promise you that I'll do the road, get a contractor and sign a contract. The truth of the matter is that the contract will not be executed because COCOBOD is not in a position to do so now. So there's a lot that we can do for the farmers, but that lot can also be done when our finances have improved. And so we need to work on how we can improve our financial situation, and then we'll be able to do a lot more for the farmer.
Talk about improving your financial situation, and you talked about the debt restructuring and all those things. There are some who also said that in every restructuring of an institution, or if you look at the payroll of any institution, the human capital is another, or wage bill is a critical factor as well. I knew you have spoken about that previously. What is the plan to take a second look at the people and ensure that, well, maybe we have to do some restructuring, and if George Yafi is here and he's doing a job where 10 people or one person can do, we have to take a second look at that as well.
So we intend to do an HR audit, and the HR audit then includes a payroll audit. We can just do a payroll audit, which will be that we want to establish whether we are all human beings or there are ghosts amongst us.
So AI, so.
Yes, and then the HR audit really looks at whether indeed we have the right people for the right roles in the right numbers and all of those things. So it's also one of the things that the board would look at, and then once approval is given, we'll get to work on that as well.
And would that lead to some concrete actions being taken?
Well,
because
obviously.
You raise concerns about the wage bill of the institution.
There will be recommendations, and those recommendations will be discussed. The board will give us directives, and we would implement them.
And the directive is that let some people go home. They will have to go.
Yes, why not?
Some will say that could be a very huge political cost as well, maybe.
Well, what will be greater? The collapse of the industry, or perhaps the loss of jobs for a few? We have 800,000 registered farmers on our database, 800,000. If you deal with an average family of 5, you're talking about 4 million farming families. So the implications of the health or otherwise of COCOBOD so immense. And so when we're taking decisions, we ought to be minded by these implications.
You think that you are bloated as an institution when it comes to the staff?
I don't want to deal with emotions, or how I feel, or what I see. Let the data speak. And so I'm patient. Let the exercise be conducted. On the basis of what the data says, we'll take a decision.
I know I went through an IMF program recommendation that talked about the fact that we should allow COCOBOD to focus on its core mandates as a board, and the issues about the cocoa roads and these other things as well. As a new CEO, what do you make of these proposals that allow the board to focus on its core mandate?
I mean, what is novel about that? What is groundbreaking about that recommendation? It's just common sense. It's common sense. If the Ministry for Roads and Highways, which has highways authority, feeder roads, urban roads, and all that, all across Ghana, is crying over contracts of 67 billion awarded, what business does COCOBOD have awarding contracts of 21 billion? What business do you have awarding contracts of 21 billion? Contracts of 21 billion, where if you look at your finances, you will not be able to deal with, even if you are given 15 years. So why would anybody do that? It's a no-brainer. If COCOBOD, you see, there are strategic roads that ought to be done. And you see, in Ghana, it looks like a lot of the institutions speak across purposes. COCOBOD ought to be engaging with the Ministry of Roads all the time. If in a year of good harvest and good prices, COCOBOD makes some money, and COCOBOD says that, look, we can commit $200 million, $300 million into some particular roads, into roads. So we are looking at this strategic road, that strategic road, that strategic road. Ministry of Roads, how do we collaborate to do that? That can be done, you know. But you don't just get up and go awarding contracts without recourse to your financial capacity. And these contracts were awarded in US dollars.
Will you push to your board that going forward, the plan is that let's work with the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and this whole thing about this COCOBOD roads thing should be a thing of the past?
Even if I don't propose it, my board will not even encourage me to do it. Because the finance minister is sitting on my board. The governor is sitting on my board. They will not even encourage it.
Dr. Often, some will say that it is not you as a person, the external pressures. That is the reality. From party faithfuls, from government officials, from your chief in your village.
So I'm telling you that I've gone around all this, and my interactions were broadcast in the media.
Yeah.
Chiefs raised this issue, farmers raised this issue, and I explained to them what the situation is and why, as we speak, we cannot do anything. So what is happening is that some of these projects, His Excellency the President has directed the Minister of Roads to look at how we can include some of these projects in the ministry's own. So as part of the rationalization that we've done, we're trying to offload some of these projects onto the Ministry of Roads project. If tomorrow or later COCOBOD's finances also improve and we can also support this, we will do that. But what we then have to do is that, because we know the cocoa growing areas better, we know the situation of the roads, we ought to be bringing it to the attention of government so that these roads can also be included in the Ministry of Roads budget per year. Not all roads can be done at the same time. I've gone around, and the deplorable nature of roads, the government would not be able to fix all these roads. But we must then be strategic and look at which roads are key and all that and deal with them.
This is PM Express Business Edition, engaging the Chief Executive of COCOBOD, Dr. Anertey Abbey, on developments in the sector. When we come back, what about the state of the finances of the company or the board? How bad is the situation? And going forward, are these reforms that are being implemented working? And what will be the outlook for the sector going into 2025 and 2026? We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition, engaging the Chief Executive of COCOBOD, Dr. Anertey Abbey. Also look at the cocoa sector and the economy, and also the state of COCOBOD. Doc, how bad is the situation in terms of your finances? Because we heard that you had made some profits some time ago. And from what I get from you, I stand to be educated. Things are not that good when you look at the numbers.
Profit.
That is what we heard in the media.
From where?
Okay, just help me in terms of what is the current state of the numbers?
His Excellency the President has spoken about it. The Finance Minister has spoken about it. I mean, the last time I checked, that debt was close to 33 billion. I have to redo it now because the dollar component might go down. The dollar components that are payable in cedis might go down as a result of the performance of the cedi or the strength of the cedi. So we would have to look at that. But that is the situation. I mean, we owe agrochemical suppliers over $400 million. Yes. And anytime we mention the cocoa rose 21 billion, people assume that the 21 billion is part of the about 33 billion. No, it is not. It is only 4.4 billion, which are certificates raised and sitting at our cash office. So of the about 33 billion we're talking about, the component of cocoa rose is just 4.4 billion, which are certificates, work executed and certificates presented for payment. So it's only 4.4 billion of the cocoa rows that is part of the about 33 billion. The others has to do with the contracts that have been given, but they've not raised certificates yet or not executed them. And that is where the rationalization is focused on, in trying to see which of them we can cancel, which of them can be offloaded to the ministry and all that, which of them can be varied and all those things. So that's the exercise that has been done. But so this is the state of our finances. I'm sure that when you got here, you waited for about an hour. All those you saw leaving my office were companies that we owed. And the banks are chasing them and all that. And they have also come here to chase us. And you see, when they come, so every day I'm dealing with either solicitor letters or court issues. And it's about people that we owe. We've owed people we owe for 4 years, for 3 years, for 2 years, for a year. Even in December, they were signing contracts, and even in January, you know, they were doing, I'm sure you've heard about the juice sacks, where they issued an irrevocable letter of credit, $48 million in December of 2024. When the paper documents show that they had imported juice sacks and over 110,000 have not been cleared over a 3-year period. Yet, they still decided to award a contract for 80,000 bales of juice sacks, valued at $48 million, and issued an irrevocable letter of credit in December of 2024 on our account at the Ghana International Bank in London. Those 80,000 bills have started arriving. And once the bill of ladings are presented to us and given to the bank, by the structure of the irrevocable LC, the 48 million will be given to the company. That is how this place was run.
It appears that you're not looking at balancing the books anytime soon based on this challenge, or the books being balanced. When our first task was to look at how we're going to deal with it, and the projections we made was that by year 4, we should be fine. Now we have to redo the books in view of the CD's appreciation. Yes. You've done some restructuring on this debt thing. What about your suppliers as well? Are they willing now to also look at the challenges that you're going through?
Yeah, when they come, we tell them that...
To restructure?
Yeah, we tell them that, look, the truth of the matter, we even met the contractors. The truth of the matter is that, I mean, COCOBOD will never be in a position to pay its debt in 1 year, unless government of Ghana decides that it's going to take over the debt and free us. But if we're going to pay the debt by ourselves, like I said, the scenarios we did, the initial one, because I wanted to have a clean picture, and so did the projections. The projections were going to be over a 4-year period, clear everything. But like I'm saying, our projections have been thrown overboard by the CD. So we are reworking it. And then when we redo it, we'll be able to have a clear picture. But there's nothing like being able to pay the debt in a year or 2. What we intend doing, and what I believe we will do, is that any contracts that we sign, any agreement that we enter into, we will pay for it. So we will not worsen the situation. So any contracts that we make, we will pay for them, whilst we also see how we can retire the existing ones. But we will not add up to, we will not compound it.
You talked about whether government decides to take it up. You have the finance minister on your board as well. Maybe when he looks at the situation.
I heard him on your station.
Yeah.
He was asked about ECG. Yeah. And then he said, oh yeah, government must look at how. And then was asked about COCOBOD. And he says, well, unfortunately for Randy, that is what the previous administration bequeathed him. He must find a way of paying.
So it looks like he wouldn't help.
He said it on your station.
He wouldn't help.
Yeah. So as for ECG, it's a national burden. For COCOBOD, he's sorry for Randy, but that's what he was bequeathed. So he has to find a way to pay.
Let's look at production going into, and it's clear that you missed the target, but it was very close. And looking at the work you guys have done, going into the next crop season, what are you looking into the production levels?
So I'm waiting for. You see, normally our research department will do the forecast. So they do the desktop one, and then they will go and do the actual and bring it. Yeah. So I do not want to speculate. So I would wait for that information from research, and then on the basis of that, I can be able to make a public pronouncement.
But if I look at what has happened this year, it looks like, and with everything that is being done, the weather is quite favorable. And if I look at what has happened on the international market, the price, a lot more people are motivated to get certain things done?
I think so. I think that I expect, like I said, I'm waiting for the data.
Okay.
I want to speak to the data. I'm waiting for it. But if we finish close to 600, we would expect that we'll try and do a little more. When we're dealing with issues of smuggling, we're dealing with the issues of illegal mining and all that. And when I say we, I mean government. Yes, that would be able to help. So that if there's even 50,000 that you can save from smuggling and all other activities, that could also show it up a bit. The issue of the plantation farming and all that, they are a bit medium term. You don't start it today and get the tonnages. We also need to embark on a huge rehabilitation drive, because about 40% of our farmlands are affected by CSSVD. And we need to do this rehabilitation. We need about $1.2 to $1.5 billion to be able to do that. But when we do that, we bring all these farmlands into production, which will then also increase the tonnage. So these are all things that we are looking at.
In your quest to try and restructure the debt and all those things, do you think that there was this talk about even acquiring certain hectares and all the rest that still shy away from some of these things, put pressure on private sector to come on board so that you get out of all these the expression of extracurricular activities and then focus?
So it won't be extracurricular, because I'll tell you that when it comes to cocoa production, apart from the acquisition of land, the acquisition of land is the only thing COCOBOD does not do. But apart from the acquisition of land, the testing to determine suitability of land for cocoa is done by Cocoa Research Institute, CRIG. The seedlings that are planted, the cocoa seedlings, the nurseries and everything is done by the Seed Production Division of COCOBOD. So we provide the seedlings. The extension services, Cocoa Health and Extension Division, CHED, they deal with the health of the cocoa and work with the farmers up until the cocoa comes up and then is harvested. Now, quality control, the quality control company, which is also part of COCOBOD, deals with the grading and testing and sealing, grading and sealing, to ensure that the standards and everything are met. Then the cocoa marketing company does the warehousing and the sale, the marketing of the cocoa bean itself. So apart from land acquisition, COCOBOD does virtually everything. So you have the LBCs who come in as the bridge between us and the farmers. So they buy on behalf of COCOBOD and get a commission. Then you have the haulers, because COCOBOD does not own a haulage company, who also come in and haul the cocoa from the farm gates to the takeover centers, ready for transportation to the shipping ports and all that. Now, COCOBOD does everything. So I said apart from land acquisition. And in this case, if you, this whole thing about plantation is the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, which is leading it as government to then get these land banks. Once they get a land bank, COCOBOD kicks into action, because CRIG now will have to go and test the suitability for cocoa. Once they test it and we find out whether you have companies or individuals being allocated those lands, a seed production and cocoa health and extension that will go to ensure that the cocoa is planted all the way to when it fruits. And then when you have the harvest done and the LBCs have bought the beans and everything, it's quality control that will zoom in to go and do the grading and sealing. When that is done, it is cocoa marketing company, CMC, which will then take over in terms of the warehousing, the shipping, and the sale. So we do everything apart from land acquisition.
Storage, and also dealing with one of your critical stakeholders, the license buying company. What is the plan going forward? Because they're also looking for more and better margins and all those things. And looking at your current state, let's first look at the LBCs and how are you managing
We engage them all the time. We even had a meeting with them last week. There's something happening with the LBCs, especially the indigenous ones, which has to do with the fact that we are not doing the syndicated loan. Because you know the LBCs... And
you do it this year,
no,
you do it next year?
We are not doing 25, 26.
Okay.
26, 27, I don't know.
Okay.
But for 25, 26, we are not.
Raising money locally?
Is the reason why, no, we're still doing the 60-40 with the buyers.
Oh, okay.
So it's the reason why I went to Europe and North America to meet the buyers and all that. Now, under the syndicated loan, COCOBOD creates what he calls the seed money. And this seed money is what is given to the LBCs to go and purchase the bean. But 24-25, no syndicated loan, so no seed fund. What we've realized is that although it is saving COCOBOD in terms of the financing cost, and mind you, because of where the prices are today, if we were to go for a syndicated loan, COCOBOD will be looking at maybe 3 billion or 3.5 billion. And because of the nature of our finances, you even have banks asking for 8% to 10% on the dollar. You understand what I'm saying? So now the indigenous LBCs are unable to operate because there's no seed money. You know, so one of the things we've done is to engage the central bank. And they asked for a follow-up letter. I've done that. Because what I then told the central bank when we engaged them was that, look, you have the cash reserve ratio, where all the banks put 25% of their deposits at the central bank. It sits there idle, not doing anything. Now we have a critical industry, the indigenous LBC is dying off. Can we look at apportioning 2% or 3% of this cash reserve ratio just to support indigenous banks, indigenous LBCs? And we can restrict it to cocoa purchases, just to ensure that the banks also don't go using it for angwa and tin tomatoes and all those things. So this is one of the discussions that we had with the central bank, and we believe that if there's a positive response, it will be able to help, especially the indigenous LBCs. Otherwise, if we continue with this financing model, I fear that most of them might go extinct.
Yeah. Let's look at the bias arrangement that you're talking about that will happen for this season. So how is it will be done? If you can just
so you see, unfortunately for us, fortunately for us, when our finances were that bad, you see, what people even forget is that 24-25, COCOBOD actually issued a request for proposals. And the market shunned us on the basis of what happened 23-24. But something significant happened. It was the same time that you had a global shortage of the bean. Cote d'Ivoire had gone down by about 500,000 tons, Ghana about 250 to 300,000 tons. There was a global shortage. So the buyers were scrambling. So we were able to take advantage of that to get the buyers to finance the crop. That's what saved us.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? Now, is that sustainable? No. Because everybody is looking at ramping up production. Ecuador is doing it. Cote d'Ivoire itself is doing it. Ghana itself is taking steps to ramp up production. Now, when you have the production, global production now go up significantly, and you do not have that shortage for bean, especially premium bean, why would the buyers then want to take care of the financing cost? They are doing so today because there's shortage, global shortage. But everybody is ramping up production. So we will ride this wave whilst we put in place measures to ensure that our financial state becomes stronger, so that we can then now look at a proper financing option. So we're hoping that, look, we can do this maybe another 2 seasons, and then we look at dealing with our finances properly. Because when the global production goes up and the prices drop, we obviously would have to find a way of financing our bean. Whether we're going to do full syndication, we're going to do a hybrid, we're going to find a different financing regime. It is something that the board and the government would have to take a decision on.
So possibly the 3rd season, we could look at a possible return to this whole syndication arrangement.
I can't tell, but we definitely will have to deal with a certain arrangement. In fact, we have to prepare for that. We will have to prepare for that, because what we're doing now is not sustainable.
Doc, as you try and wrap up, what do you look for as the outlook for the sector in terms of all these reforms that have been undertaken?
Well, you know, unfortunately, one of the biggest things that I would want us to do is the rehabilitation of the farms, you know, because that then brings farmlands into production. And mind you, the minimum you get from a hectare is 1 ton. So the more you rehabilitate, the more you get. And that is why I'm saddened by what the previous management has done with the AFDB loan with respect to the rehabilitation. Because we took this facility and there was $223 million meant for rehabilitating diseased, the CSSVD farms and morid-borne farms, aged farms. So the farms from 25 to 30 years, you would have to
rehabilitate them again. So we're supposed to do 156,000 hectares. And we got 223 million for that, and another $40 million for irrigation. We renegotiated the irrigation to be added to the 223, so it became $263 million to rehabilitate 156,000 hectares of farmlands. The $263 million is gone. Another 700 million cedis from COCOBOD is gone. Yet, the farms that have been fully done and handed over to farmers is 40,000.
What happened?
I don't know.
Doc, what should we remember Dr. Randy Abbey for when after 4 years, after 8 years, he moves on?
That's a difficult question. So I'll answer it from this way. I mean, the task given to me by His Excellency the President is to build and lead a team here to make sure that we turn around the fortunes of COCOBOD. So to move COCOBOD from a debt-stricken organization to an organization that is healthy and which is providing value for the farmers. And that is what, by the special grace of God, I hope that the team and I will be able to achieve during my tenure.
So after this tenure, we should be seeing a balanced book, soaring profits, you know, and very happy farmers out there.
That is the objective. That is the objective.
And that is achievable.
It is. By the special grace of God and the team that we have here, it is. The only thing is that, like I said, our initial projections have been thrown overboard by this unexpected strength of the city. We will rework the books. We will deal with it.
Doc, as you wrap up, your final words to the cocoa farmers out there, as you try to work out a new producer price, what is your final word to cocoa farmers out there who are watching you?
Well, I mean, going around the country, I've told them about the state of the sector, but I've also told them that cocoa has held this country from day one till today. And it is the cocoa farmer whose hard work and diligence and patriotism would lift this industry back. And so we're relying on them. And that is why I went round to solicit their ideas and their understanding and their assistance. And so all I say is that we'll continue to collaborate and work together, as I told them, to ensure that we'll bring our industry back in shape and to ensure that we'll create value for all stakeholders in this industry.
Doc, I appreciate your time so much, and I'll be coming back after the producer price to see what happened and how the dollar situation is playing out. This is PM Expert Business Edition. I know the debate is still going in your homes on what else can be done for the sector and whether COCOBOD is doing enough despite all the challenges that we are facing. This has been PM Express Business Edition, engaging the Chief Executive of COCOBOD, Dr. Randy Abbey. My name is George Afe. Have a great day.